No hostile power that the Imperium of Man doesn't have an answer to. The Astra Militarum serves as the hammer of the Emperor, throwing waves upon waves of countless infantry and armored vehicles into the enemy line and breaking them through sheer force of numbers. The Astartes are the elite shock troops, plunging into hellish battlefields and drop pods launched from their enormous battle barges to fight back monumental threats like Chaos Space Marines and the dangerous Xenos such as the Tyranids. The Inquisition is the secret police force and primary intelligence service of the Imperium. And while largely made up of highly skilled and capable men and women, even these Inquisitors, with their nigh unlimited authority and resources, aren't equipped to handle the worst that the forces of chaos have to offer. To that end, the Inquisition relies on the military arm of its Ordo Malleus, the Grey Knights. A well-kept secret to most of the Imperium, the Grey Knights are an elite chapter of the Astartes who specialize in hunting down the demonic entities of the Warp and their mortal servants throughout the galaxy. These Space Marines are blessed with a gene seed from the Emperor himself, making each one a masterful psyker, incorruptible by the taint of chaos. But who are these secretive warriors? Why were they needed? How are they structured, and what are they up to in the 41st millennium? Let's declassify some Imperial records and get into it. Welcome back to Starhammer. Most people don't even know the Grey Knights don't exist, but we aren't most people. We've been given unparalleled access to the histories of the mysterious chapter of the Astartes, so we're gonna get the full picture. Conceived during the last days of the Horus Heresy and kept under lock and key, the Emperor needed a dedicated force whose sole purpose was to fight back the corruption of chaos that was infesting the Imperium. For that task, he designated his friend and right-hand man, Malcador. Malcador's duty was to find the purest, most devoted, and most loyal among the Astartes and the High Lords of Terra, bring them back to the Emperor. Just before the Emperor was set to face Horus, Malcador introduced 12 people as his chosen. 8 Space Marines, 4 loyal human lords from across the Imperium. These 8 were formerly members of Malcador's personal guard, the Knights Errant, and were all incredibly powerful psychers. Some of them were even from traitor legions, but they knew that loyalty to the Emperor was above all else, and so defied the wishes of their primarchs to be where they now kneeled. The Emperor was pleased with Malcador's selection. He knew that these few would be able to carry out the duties that needed to be done. He bade them depart for Titan, the largest moon of Saturn, and begin building their organization. They went through a webway portal, never again to see the Emperor, and to begin building the organization the Imperium would so desperately need. On Titan, the Space Marines came to their new home, a massive fortress monastery hidden on the moon. Malcador and the Emperor had everything ready beforehand, and thousands of new recruits from across the Imperium had been vetted and transported here, along with thousands of servitors and plentiful samples of gene seed derived from the Emperor himself. Each of the 8 and the many recruits had each had their minds and souls probed for even the slightest touch of corruption, and they all came up clean, cleaner than anyone else could ever be, save for the Emperor and Malcador, of course. As a few days went on and Malcador helped them set up their new chapter, he would eventually be called back to Terra to sit on the Golden Throne in the Emperor's place. Malcador chose one of the 8, Janus of the Thousand Suns, to be the first supreme Grand Master of the Grey Knights, and then wrap Titan in a protective bubble before casting it into the warp as a safe measure. The 4 mortals Malcador had recruited had formed the Inquisition, the secret police of the Imperium, that would be capable of snuffing out the flames of rebellion and the taint of corruption wherever it was found, using their near limitless authority and resources. It was the Inquisition alone that knew of Titan's fate, and years after the Horus Heresy, when the Second Founding was beginning and the Codex Astartes formalized, Titan emerged from the warp to the welcoming arms of the Inquisition. Entered into Imperial records as the 666th chapter to be founded, the decades of honing their combat and psychic prowess on the sands of Titan led to the Grey Knights emerging from the warp, ready and able to fight back against the demons of chaos. As the Imperium slowly got back to normal after the Horus Heresy, the Grey Knights eventually became the military arm of the Inquisition's Ordo Malleus, or Demon Hunters. Each knight is a potent master psyker and expert warrior, clad in the best arms and armor the Imperium is capable of producing. But to be mighty warriors is only part of the job. Unlike other psychers in the Imperium, like Space Marine librarians, the Grey Knights are incorruptible. He doesn't have to fear demonic possession, stemming from harnessing his great psychic power because the demons of the warp fear him. As such, Grey Knights are the only ones totally capable of fighting the secret war waged every day for the very soul of the Imperium and come out unchanged. Grey Knights strike hard and fast, purging chaos cults and sealing warp tears before disappearing as quickly as they arrived. But these chores pale in comparison to their real duty of banishing and destroying demons. Unlike anyone else in the Imperium, the Grey Knights are granted full knowledge of the nature and dangers of the warp. On Titan, their fortress is packed to the brim with libraries containing all the collected knowledge of chaos, because in order to destroy the demon, the Grey Knight must understand the demon. This education enables the warriors of the Grey Knights to banish demonic entities in a multitude of ways, as one method may not work on the same demon twice, or even on other demons in general. There are countless ways to combat these foes, just as the demons of the warp are countless themselves. So, the Grey Knights are always studying and researching new and more efficient ways to destroy their enemies, and the demons are in competition to stay ahead of the wards and methods employed by the Knights. It's a constant game of cosmic cat and mouse. One of the most effective methods used by the Grey Knights is the usage of true names. True names are just what they sound like. True name of a demonic entity. Demons very rarely use their true names, adopting titles such as the Changer of Ways, because knowledge of their true name gives that individual who possesses it immense power over them. Conducting a ritual using the true name of a demon is extremely dangerous, even for those of the Grey Knights. Each word and gesture must be precise and exact, leaving no room for error. Inducing a true name allows the Grey Knight to bind or destroy a demon, both body and soul. While no demon can ever really be killed and will always be able to return given enough time, a demon destroyed spiritually needs much more time to manifest itself again, as opposed to one that was just destroyed physically. True names are, like the Imperium that they come from, are ever changing. Scribes toil away on Titan, searching for mere fractions of a name and recording it in their own blood, so that the Grey Knights always have the most potent version of their greatest weapon. The incorruptible purity of the Grey Knights also allows them to use words of banishment, which are known to drive anyone else insane. 666 of these words are known. Each is learned and mastered over many years by the Grey Knights. To date, only Janus, the first Supreme Grandmaster, has ever learned all 666 words. These words are chanted by the Grey Knight during battle and serve just as dangerous of a role as bolters and blades, each word giving them immense power as they turn the very nature of chaos against itself to aid them in battle. But just like true names, they are ever fluctuating. Grey Knight librarians are constantly on guard for these changes or even for new words, as some will lose power altogether over time, and chaos will create new ones to take their place. One of the most important and interesting tools the Grey Knights hold in their arsenal are the Tesseract Labyrinths. These ancient tools, obtained from and developed by the Necrons, are about the size of a knight's fist and are essentially demonic traps. These devices work by harnessing the energy of the demon against itself. The zero-point reactor of the Tesseract forces the demonic energy back upon itself. In a nutshell, the more a trapped demon struggles to break containment, the stronger the chains become. Due to the rarity of these artifacts and the difficulty of luring a demon into one, only a handful remain in the vaults on Titan. And it's on Titan that we will now find ourselves. The recruits brave harrowing trials to join the ranks of the Grey Knights, and the massive fortress monastery stands as a bulwark against the hellish waves of the warp. To even have a chance at joining the fold, one must be selected by a gatherer. These gatherers are Grey Knights who, due to age or injury, are no longer capable of doing the usual job of the chapter, but still possess keen and disciplined minds. So, it's their job to find potential aspirants among the various ships and hives of the Imperium, probing their minds for corruption and for potential purity that can be sharpened into the weapon the Grey Knights need. Upon arrival on Titan, most recruits are dumped into the frigid desert and made to walk to the fortress. Those who make it are almost immediately subjected to physical and mental torture to test their willpower before they even go anywhere near the warp. Those that survive are fitted with an explosive collar and sent off towards the crystal-laden Xanadu region, where their psychic endurance is put to the test as chemicals in the air unravel reality around them. If they fail to contain their psychic power, the collar explodes, and the recruit joins the countless skeletons littering the region and all the other horrific zones they have to pass through to reach it. If they prove their endurance and conviction, they're inducted into the chapter as neophytes, and their real training begins. After going through 666 rituals of detestation, the aspirant undergoes the most advanced bioengineering to become a Grey Knight, second only in complexity to the Adeptus Custodians, even going so far as to have silver purity wards implanted under their skin. After it's all said and done, their mind is wiped of any recollection of their previous life, to both ensure loyalty and to give the demons of chaos nothing to manipulate them with. As the true names of demons hold a lot of sway in the warp, so too do the true names of mortals, which is why even their names are wiped from their brains to make extra sure that the neophyte isn't malleable. They're then given a full suit of advanced Aegis armor and a number designation and are pushed out to the front lines as soon as possible. If they fall, they fall. They might be buried, they might not be. Over the grueling months of combat, psychic training in the field, aspirants learn in a manner similar to how Black Templars teach their neophytes. By example, only about 1 in a million make it through, but those that do return to Titan as proud warriors of the Emperor's light. From among the countless tomes and grimoires of their libraries, the aspirant is given a new name. This name is derived from the true name of a demon, as hearing the name spoken aloud causes the demonic entities of the warp extreme pain, and even simply being in the same vicinity as these battle brothers is enough to send a demon fleeing in terror. The aspirants rise as fully fledged battle brothers of the Grey Knights, reborn into the service of the Emperor's Inquisition with the finest weapons and armor at their disposal. Along with vast libraries of forbidden knowledge, they are sent out to push back the threat of chaos from the Emperor's realm. As the Grey Knights are a bit special, the way their chapter is structured deviates from other Space Marine chapters in a couple of little ways. They don't adhere to the Codex, and are more part of the Inquisition than they are the Space Marines. The chapter is organized into brotherhoods, which are about the size of a standard Astartes company. Brother captains lead them. The captains are overseen by 8 grandmasters, who make up the chapter council under the Supreme Grandmaster. Each member of the council has an equal voice, but the Supreme Grandmaster has the final say. Each of the Grandmasters has sway over a specific part of the chapter, such as the Purifiers under Castellan Crow, or the Paladins under High Paladin Gavan and Bors. You get the idea. Below them, the Grey Knights typically operate in squads of 5 or 10, similar to other Astartes chapters. Now, the weapons the Grey Knights use are even more unusual, even by Space Marine standards. Nemesis Force weapons are swords, hammers, and other melee weapons inscribed with verses from the Imperial Creed and ritually blessed to be as pure as their wielders. Thought to have been developed by the Emperor himself, these weapons are psychically tuned to their user. The more powerful a psychic is, the more potent their blade becomes. In a sense, it is evolving alongside the skill of the wielder. Their guns are similarly tuned to fighting demonic entities. Their bolter rounds are inscribed and blessed to be particularly damaging to warp foes. Some weapons, such as the Silencer, spelled with a P for some reason, don't even use ammunition. Instead, serve as a focus for the Grey Knights, similar to a wand or staff for a wizard, and let them fire barrages of psychic bolts against their enemy. The storm bolters they use are always wrist mounted, allowing them to use a Nemesis Force weapon with 2 hands, or so they have a free hand for rituals and casting. The Aegis pattern of power armor they wear is, like their weapons, an extension of the Grey Knights themselves. Inscribed with wards and powered by their psychic might, the Aegis armor not only serves to protect the wearer from physical damage, but from psychic damage as well. It creates an effect known as the shrouding, which essentially makes it extremely hard for demons to manifest their powers near the Grey Knights, making them much weaker than they would normally be, and allowing Grey Knights an easier shot at banishing or destroying the threat. You'd think with all these cool toys, the Grey Knights are always ready to meet the powers of chaos and force, but in reality, the Grey Knights rarely undergo mass deployment to a single conflict. Usually, about 20 Grey Knights make up a strike team and act as support for another force, such as an Inquisitor. Possessing unmatched mobility as they teleport shunt from place to place, squads will amplify their powers through their squad's Justicar, or the equivalent of a sergeant, into an Aegis. This is a psychic choir of sorts, where the combined might of the squad focused through a single point is so powerful that it makes all but the most powerful demons unable to maintain a physical presence around them. If that doesn't speak to how potent these guys are against the forces of chaos, I don't know what does. But in the 41st millennium, the pure and uncompromising nature of the Grey Knights has often led to conflict with other forces in the Imperium. Most of the Imperium has no idea that chaos exists. The Inquisition would prefer to keep it that way. If Grey Knights are deployed to a world, the situation there is usually far beyond what conventional Imperial means can handle. But the secretive nature of the knowledge of chaos, and by extension the Grey Knights themselves, dictate that those who witness these knights in shining armor also must be dealt with, one way or another. The Astartes that witness them are typically sworn to oaths of the utmost secrecy or mind wiping. At the same time, Imperial Guard or groups of citizens might not be so lucky. In such instances, Grey Knights might deem them as tainted by chaos and privy to corruption. You can probably guess what happens next. Sometimes this leads to conflicts of interest with the other forces, such as other Space Marines. A good example of this is the interaction between the Space Wolves and the Grey Knights during the First War of Armageddon. The Inquisition and the Grey Knights had decided that keeping the secret of demons from spreading to the wider population was of the utmost importance, and those guardsmen and civilians who survived the war were considered tainted by the experience. Naturally, this led the Grey Knights and the Inquisition to order mass executions. The Space Wolves, led by Logan Gribnar, straight up refused to cooperate with that, seeing the execution as the faithless slaughter of loyal citizens and soldiers who had sacrificed everything in defense of their world, and refused to hand over any survivors while fortifying their position around them. This led to a standoff. resulting in the Space Wolves, Grey Knights, and Inquisition coming to blows. Despite that, Logan didn't want a full-scale war between all the factions present and confronted the Inquisition and the Grey Knights himself, while his men evacuated as many survivors as they could, giving them refuge in the holds of the Space Wolves elsewhere in the galaxy. He argued that the Inquisition were the real traitors here, as their summary executions were a gross betrayal of the people who had thus far been totally loyal and unwavering in the face of overwhelming odds. A simple compromise was reached where only a fraction of the survivors would be purged or mind wiped to satisfy the Inquisition. Space Wolves are able to keep their honor by helping the rest escape. This led to a lasting animosity between all these guys. The Space Wolves denounced the Grey Knights and Inquisition as overly zealous and callous, while the Inquisition and the Grey Knights labeled the Space Wolves as reckless and insubordinate, putting the entirety of the Imperium at risk by their actions. So as you can see, while the Grey Knights serve a critical role in the Imperium, their unwavering purity calls into question the moral conundrums present throughout a lot of 40k stories. Are we really saving humanity in pursuit of these gruesome and brutal methods to keep the very nature of the universe a secret? Is purging an entire world through exterminatus safer than any other alternative? Do the ends truly justify the means? Whatever the answer to that question, the Grey Knights will stand regardless as the shining shield against the darkness of chaos, keeping the Emperor's realm safe from demonic incursion. And that'll do it for this one, y'all. I haven't touched Grey Knights since my very first video over a year ago, and what a journey that has been. Making this video made me realize, once again, how cool these guys are, though I didn't really care for them on the tabletop. But what do you think of the Grey Knights, both on the board and in the lore? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday and that Santa brings you all the model kits you've been asking for. As always, drop a like if you like it, a subscribe if you really liked it. Don't forget to check the community tab for shitposts and shenanigans. Links to the social of the goodies are in the description, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Toodles, and Merry Christmas.